Hey, thank you for taking the time to click on today's video. As we have more and more of the baby boomer generation that's retiring, now we're coming into that time frame in where these up-and-coming retirees are starting to make decisions with regards to a special income benefit that their employer has had them participate in, and that's called the pension. Now, if you have a pension, I want you to consider yourself to be a very lucky individual. Less than 21% of Americans today actually have a pension, and pensions are one of those most valuable components to a retirement because it is a guaranteed lifetime income. It's an income that you can't ever outlive. And yet, I do know that there's always that concern, how stable is that pension? Is that pension something that I can truly rely upon? Well, the reality is that most pensions are not insured. That means that they're not government pensions or state pensions, which typically can but won't fail. The private pensions, however, those are the ones that are on a little shakier ground. But today we're not going to be discussing that. We're going to be discussing the pension elections. This is something that causes people a lot of anxiety as they see that pension election form because there's so many different things to fill out. There's so many different decisions. Today you're going to learn about actually 4 of the most common pension election options that you're going to have if you have a pension. Now, again, we want to bear in mind that a pension is something that is a contractual promise that you will receive income forever. This is something that your employer paid into. Maybe you had some degree of participation, but generally speaking, this is something that is completely and totally funded by the employer. And remember, the gamble here between you, the employee, and the pension company or the pension fund is it's a gamble to see who's going to outlive who. You want to be able to live as long as you possibly can to get as much income extracted from that pension. And the pension company is, I know it's unsavory to say, but they're hoping that you die before that would ever happen. So the obligation that they have is an unknown obligation. But of course, all pensions have actuaries that help them statistically figure out approximately how long a person of your age and your gender is going to live. Now, when it comes to various different pension elections, you have to understand that income is going to vary. So the first one that we're going to start out with, number 1, is called life only. Now, life only is typically going to give you the greatest amount of monthly benefit. It's going to be the one with the greatest amount of sizzle. You're going to look at that pension election and say, wow, look at the amount of income that I'm going to be able to receive for the rest of my life. However, there is always a risk with life only. And that risk is really this, that in the event that you were to, say, get run over by the big yellow bus in 6 months after turning on the pension, well, I'm sorry to say, but it's game over. Family gets nothing under a life only. Spouse gets nothing under a life only. Now, number 2 is going to be something that is going to be called period certain. Now, period certain is basically where you're defining for the pension company, hey, I want income every single month for this number of years. It could be 5 years, it could be 10 years, it could be 15, or maybe even as long as 20 years. But what happens if you were to live that long? Let's say that you picked a 15-year period certain. Well, what's going to happen is they're going to pay you for that 15 years. And guess what? The very next month, the check is now done. They have essentially emptied and paid you everything that they suggested that they would pay you. And once you've fulfilled that time frame, it's all over and done with. Now, what happens if you were to pass away? Let's say you picked the 15-year and you died in the 10th year. Well, in that particular case, a beneficiary, this could be a spouse, this could be children, whoever you would list as a beneficiary, is going to remain receiving income for the remaining 5 years. So if you died in year 10, but you have a 15-year obligation that you put them under, that family member is going to get 5 more years worth of payment. Now, you can have something called life with period certain, and that one is kind of an amalgamation of number 1 and number 2, where basically, as long as you're alive, you're going to get it. But if you have lived beyond that period certain that you gave them as an obligation, well, once you pass away, then it's all over and done with. Now, number 3 is going to be the one that is most common with married couples. If you're married, you have a spouse, and you're concerned about, well, what happens if I die? I want her to receive the income. Well, life with survivor is going to be a big deal. Now, here's where the math gets a little interesting. You're typically going to have 4 sub options under the life with survivor option. You could give that surviving spouse 100% of what you were receiving. That means that if you were getting, say, $2,000 a month, if you die, regardless of when, that spouse is going to receive $2,000 a month. Now, you could give her 75%. Now, in this case, your $2,000 is actually going to go up a little. Maybe you'll get $2,200. And then if you die, she's going to get 75% of that. You could also give her half. Now, in this particular case, you're going to see that your portion goes up even more. Maybe it goes from 22 to 2,400, and she's going to get half of that. And then, of course, you could give her the 1/4 option. This is 25%. Now, you're going to see that your amount goes up even more because she's getting less. Now, why would that be the case? Well, the pension is obligated, remember, not only to you as the employee, but it's also obligated for that surviving spouse. So in this particular case, the less you obligate the pension to that surviving spouse, the more you're going to get up front. Now, under most circumstances, we know that if we are a gentleman, we're the person who's receiving this pension, our counterparts are generally outliving us. And so life expectancy is a big deal with women, and making certain that they don't run out of income should be important to us. So I'll say that generally speaking, probably 80 to 90% of the pensioners that I work with every single day, if they're married, they're going to want to choose between the 100% survivorship and the 75% survivorship. Now, your mileage may vary. You may have a very different arrangement. Maybe you've got a lot of life insurance that she's going to get when you pass away. Maybe she has her own pension. Maybe there's rental income involved. But this is going to be the one that makes spouses feel the most secure. But number 4, let's talk about number 4, because number 4 is something that only very, very few pensioners actually get, and that is called lump sum. Now, it's not very common that a person is going to just simply take their pension money and run. However, you may have this option. Many pensions don't allow you to take a lump sum, but you may. And if you have a lump sum pension option, here's the things that you need to be aware of. Number 1, with the Federal Reserve raising interest rates, it has caused the lump sum value of pensions to go down drastically. And this is primarily because pensions have what's called a policy investment statement, and they have to invest in a lot of bonds because bonds are safe, they're contractual, they create income. And so when interest rates go up, the value of those bonds go down. So many pensioners over the course of 2022 and 23 and 24, they've seen this number shrinking. Well, now that the Federal Reserve is taking interest rates and now cutting those interest rates, what we're seeing within those pensions is that lump sum amount is now working its way up, and it's going to continue to work its way up as the Federal Reserve decides to cut interest rates. Now, why would a person ever choose to do a lump sum over having income for life? Well, I think that there's a couple of considerations. Number 1, if you do a lump sum, it does not have to be a taxable event to you. You can simply take the money from the pension and you can roll that directly into an IRA. And guess what? That's a totally tax-free move. Number 2 is that when you do that lump sum and you move that money from the pension into that IRA, guess what? 100% of that money is now all yours. You can use it for whatever you want. If you want to take it out and build a new home, you can. If you want to invest it for income and receive income every year for the rest of your life and never touch the principal, you can do that. If you pass away 30 days after rolling the pension, guess what? Your spouse is going to inherit all of that money, 100% of it. And if both of you died, say in a car accident, guess what? Your children are now going to receive 100% of that asset. Where children, generally speaking, kind of get they get the hard end of the stick when it comes to pensions, because pensions are designed for you. Sometimes they're designed for the spouse, but they are rarely designed to provide any sort of a benefit to your children. So hopefully this quick and dirty definition of pensions and pension election options is helpful for you as you navigate and figure out when and how much am I going to be able to get from this pension. These are all 4 of the basic criteria and areas that you need to study before you make that pension election, because remember, it is a very firm decision. If this is something that you're going through, you need help, I encourage you reach out to a fiduciary, reach out to an advisor so that you know that you're making the right decision for your financial future. I'm Matthew Johnson. Thank you so much for watching. If this video has been helpful, give us a thumbs up. Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think about pensions. Have you had a pension? Has it been a benefit to you and to your retirement? Share this with your friends. Maybe you've got some friends that are up and coming pensioners that will be making these big decisions. Maybe this will help them. And then, of course, if you like our little videos, please go ahead and subscribe. We'll let you know every single time we record one. We'll send it to you, and hopefully we can continue learning together. I'm Matthew Johnson. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, it's up to you to make today a great day.